Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and this is another video to my colleague across the aisle, David P. Withen, and another video on why I'm not an atheist, part 3, atheist moral objections. And in this essay, I'll post it, and he has a video on it too. He divests himself of all the responsibilities in his connection to all the perceived atrocities of the church across the centuries, and even addresses the atheist objection to war and the atrocities committed in the Old Testament. Kind of see what I'm there. I read the literature back in the Middle East. It was all slice and dice, and but he softens the blow, and it's funny. He goes with the assimilation idea, where it was a gradual invasion of Israelis from the into the land of the Canaanites, and but in Joshua, you get the other side where it was a warlike invasion. So there's two views. He takes the latter, which is less confrontational, less messy. So he's on a huge PR campaign for Christianity, and I find it really interesting. So he gives us atheists, I'm not an atheist, but he gives atheists the Crusades, saying, well, it wasn't as bad. He gives us Hitler and Stalin, and he ends up making the claim that atheism has killed more people than Christianity has. And so the claim of I'm not a Christian because of all the atrocities is a bad one. So I'm going to read a section which I find interesting, and I have no idea why he put this in here. Also, too, he claims that the Canaanites were horrible and that they committed child sacrifice. As you know from watching some of my videos, if you're a long-time subscriber, I have read the Canaanite and Ugaritic literature, and there is no evidence for those claims. And if my colleague across the aisle would like to post some of that information so that I could look at it, I'd be interesting, because as far as I know, nothing has been found on the topic, and I'd be greatly interested in learning about the practice of Canaanite child sacrifice. So moving on, I think it was St. Augustin originally who, after seeing his city of God, or Rome, fall to the barbarians, had to distinguish the idea of a Christian just war versus a pagan war. And he said that a Christian war is done with love. So by slicing and dicing, you're doing them a favor. And it was through Augustine that Christian wars were justified in the early Christian philosophy. So take a look at that. Also take a look at Karen Armstrong, Holy War, the Crusades, and their impact on today's world. Because the whole idea of hate the sin, love the sinner, still raises huge issues in our society, especially with the gay rights movement and other movements that Christianity seems to look down upon. And here he gives us all the infants killed with abortions, which is kind of silly because the church has had a hand in that too, simply by not allowing the distribution of condoms, especially with the spread of AIDS in Africa, and by simply not adopting. So all the people who are out protesting abortion clinics and whatnot, very few of those people adopt. All the unwanted children are put on the system. So I would say to my colleague, he better get more involved and maybe do a video on how many orphanages he's running, because I don't think he runs any. So moving on, friends, since, as I said before, anybody can practice and work towards virtue. And one of those virtues is justice, which the word seems to be lacking for some reason in the New Testament. So I decided to take it upon myself to help out the New Testament writers, the Apostle Paul, and my colleague across the aisle, and do them a favor of inserting justice into a piece of Christian literature. And friends, the Christian literature, when interpreted correctly for you, can work. And if you look at it from the view of virtue, there are plenty of things in there that can be angled towards the atheist and things that he even can use. And this is one of them, friends. So what I've done is crossed out love or charity in 1 Corinthians 13. It's a very popular text. You hear it a lot at weddings. But I've inserted justice, where charity and love were supposed to be. And it reads beautifully. And this is how I think it should be. And to my atheist colleagues and friends out there, this is how you can use justice as a virtue. And this is how you can view a section of the New Testament and even some of the teachings of Christ that we've talked about before. I'm agnostic. I could care less. But I believe it's very important for each person to try to obtain the highest forms of virtue and encourage others to do so. So here it is, 1 Corinthians 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not justice, I become as sounding brass or tinkling cymbal. And though I have gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains and have not justice, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not justice, it profiteth me nothing. Justice suffereth long, and is kind. Justice envieth not. Justice vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up, doth not behave itself unseemingly, seeketh her own, is easily provoked, thinketh no evil, rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Justice never faileth. But whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect is come, then that which is in part shall be done away. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even also I am known. And now abideth faith, hope, and justice, these three. But the greatest of these is justice. Beautiful. So, take care, friends. Hopefully you enjoyed that sermon. Be well. And remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.